This is the Download Recap brought to you by Sounds Profitable, the most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Gavin Gaddis. The Download Recap is brought to you by Podscribe. You can find out more at podscribe.com. Now, let's get into the week's news. First up, SiriusXM Media becomes exclusive audio advertising representative for YouTube in the United States. The new exclusivity partnership between SiriusXM Media and Google will allow advertisers to buy guaranteed audio ad impressions against YouTube's high-value audiences at scale for the first time. Here's a quote from SiriusXM Media Chief Advertising Revenue Officer Scott Walker. Quote, "By partnering with YouTube, a true leader in ad-supported content consumption, we're uniting our unique skill set with their audience, creating an unparalleled opportunity for marketers and creators to grow their businesses." End quote. In recent months, the combination of SiriusXM, AdsWizz, and Simplecast has made major moves across technology, inventory, and ad sales, and it's been impressive to watch. That stack already gives them a unique advantage that benefits nearly every company in this space. Now, with an exclusive audio ad sales relationship with YouTube, they're extending that reach even further and helping buyers and publishers monetize audiences wherever they get their podcasts. Eyes are optional, a new article from Tom Webster. According to the new Audio Primes report from Sounds Profitable, built from the Podcast Landscape 2025 data, about 22% of podcast consumers listen to 75% or more of their podcasts as audio. These Audio Prime consumers skew younger than the total podcast audience and over-index on free streaming TV, Instagram Reels, and premium streaming with ads. 90% of Audio Primes use YouTube. They're not a video-adverse crowd, though, to the point they have more screen time than the average podcast consumer. But for podcasts, they listen. Tom Webster highlights the measurement gap when audio primes slip between what platforms track and what consumers actually do. Here's a quote from the article. Quote, "Audio primes watch more video than the average podcast listener, a lot of them finding their audio-first shows through video, clips on Reels, thumbnails on YouTube, and interviews somebody else watched and told them about. Video is still doing the discovery work. What the data actually says is narrower and more useful. Once an audio prime has decided to spend an hour with the show, the screen stops being the point. The platform is video. The consumption is audio. Both are true at the same time. A strategy that ignores either one will miss this audience entirely." End quote. The next $1 billion in podcasting starts with better data. This week, Bumper co-founder Jonas Woost announced the launch of Bumper Score, a new third-party audience verification metric. The metric represents how well a podcast delivers ads to a verified audience in relation to the industry average on a scale from 0 to 200. It is built from hosting providers' podcast delivery data, verified audience data from major podcast platforms, and episode-level retention data to measure true engagement. With this new metric, Woost aims to address recurring concerns raised by media buyers. Podcasts work, but buyers need more data proving ads reach real listeners, beyond debates like what's a download or who heard the ad. Following the announcement, Inside Audio Marketing has covered the wider industry's opinions about Bumper Score. Here's a quote from Sounds Profitable partner Brian Barletta. Quote, "Bumper Score gives the industry a shared language and the necessary infrastructure for audience quality that works for publishers, buyers, and the broader ecosystem. It's something that collectively our industry has been working on for over a decade." But more impressively, the first time we've seen it presented in a way that publishers and buyers can realistically adopt and implement into their content growth and media planning strategies. End quote. Right Side Up GM Offline and Audio, Christina Rubino, says more transparency and consistency in podcast advertising benefits the industry. Advertisers can move faster and invest confidently. Bumper says that so far, clients have allocated over $500,000 toward ad buys enabled by Bumper Score grading. Beehive adds even more features to go up against competitors and win over creators. Podcasts have been the new hotness on content platform Beehive since launching several weeks back. Beehive CEO and co-founder Tyler Denk tells Digiday that the company reached its quarterly goal for new podcasts within 25 hours of the feature going live, and have since exceeded their Q2 goal 10 times over. Half of those incoming shows are migrations of existing podcasts from other platforms. Now, Beehive is rolling out a complimentary podcast AI feature. The new podcast MCP tool adds native AI support, letting users connect their chosen AI chatbot, for example, Claude, to direct access their podcast data. This lets users query their bot on podcast statistics instead of manually exporting and reviewing dashboard spreadsheets. Webinars have also been added to Beehive, allowing users to host live events with up to 10,000 attendees, sell tickets in 10 different currencies, and record sessions to sell later as standalone products, a feature that could easily be used for paid access video podcast live shows. Time for quick hits. These are articles I covered throughout the week that didn't fit into top stories today, but are still worth including in your weekend reading. First up, the early entry phase for the Signal Awards 2026 is now open with a deadline of May 8th. Amazon Ads has partnered with Global to bring commercial audio brands to Amazon DSP, integrating it directly with Global's digital ad exchange, DAX. Inside Audio Marketing cracks open the latest Magellan AI monthly rankers for podcast advertising to look at March 2026. Last week, YouTube announced a new feature that will allow users to set daily time limits for YouTube Shorts consumption. Garrett Seawright proposes this is less a sign the sky is falling for podcasters on YouTube Shorts and more a sign quality content. Quality content is not a real thing. Quality content and diversification is now more important than ever. And finally, Pod News has compiled all of the podcast winners announced for the 2026 Webby Awards. That was the download recap brought to you by Sounds Profitable and Podscribe. I go through the stories fast, so remember, you can find links to everything I just talked about by clicking the link in your show notes that will take you to today's episode post on soundsprofitable.com, where you can also subscribe to get the newsletter version sent directly to your email inbox. I'm Gavin Gaddis. Our producers are myself, Brian Barletta, Molly DeMillier, and Tom Webster. Special thanks to you, as always, for sticking with me as I brought you all the top stories from this week in the business of podcasting. Robot.
Download complete.